The idea of working at a local haunted house attraction seemed like a fun venture during the fall season. My friend Emily was already a part of the team, and she mentioned they were in need of new actors and actresses. With her help, I secured a job there. Upon meeting with the owner, I learned that the attraction consisted of 3 haunted houses and a haunted corn maze. On my first day, I went through some light rehearsals and demonstrated my acting skills to one of the supervisors. My assigned role for the night was that of a damsel in distress, which meant I would be tied to a pole, screaming for help as guests walked past. Of course, guests were instructed not to touch any of the actors, so they would know not to actually untie me when I yelled for help. Before opening time, the supervisor, Jeremiah, walked me to my post, which happened to be a wooden post in the middle of the corn maze. I was surprised to find out that I would actually be tied up and not just pretending. I asked about bathroom breaks, and Jeremiah assured me there would be short breaks between sessions. He also mentioned there would be another supervisor nearby if I needed anything, which provided some comfort. Once he left, I was left alone amidst the eerie sounds of the cornfield. Soon enough, a distant air horn signaled that the attraction was open. I started getting into character, feeling nervous but excited. Since I was positioned in the middle of the corn maze, it took a few minutes for the first guest to pass by. I began my performance, screaming and fake crying, pleading with everyone who passed for help. Some guests played along while others simply walked by. However, there were long gaps between guests, and I started to notice rustling in the crops nearby. I wondered if it was a staff member, as guests were not supposed to stray from the path. At one point, 2 men emerged from the crops and approached the pole I was tied to. They were the same 2 men who had passed by earlier. Something felt off, and I broke character, telling them they couldn't stray from the path. They began speaking in another language, seemingly ignoring my warnings. One of them started inappropriately touching me while the other stood watch. I immediately realized what was happening and started screaming for help, calling out that I was being assaulted. Thankfully, a supervisor emerged and the men ran off. I was untied and escorted out of the maze. Shaken by the experience, I called my parents, who insisted I leave immediately. I never returned to work at the haunted house attraction again. As I drove home, I became increasingly paranoid, checking to see if I was being followed. Halfway home, I noticed the same white car had been behind me the whole time. I took random turns, but the car stayed behind. Realizing I was being followed, I drove to the nearest police precinct, and the car finally disappeared. I sat in my car for a while, confirming I wasn't being followed before finally heading home, relieved but shaken by the night's events. The opportunity to work at a local haunted house attraction arose when my friend Sarah mentioned they were hiring actors for the Halloween season. Intrigued by the idea, I applied and was thrilled to land the job. The attraction consisted of several sections, including a haunted mansion, a spooky forest trail, and a terrifying corn maze. On my first day, I was assigned the role of a haunted bride who roamed the haunted mansion, haunting guests with eerie wails and ghostly appearances. Excited but slightly nervous, I embraced the challenge. As dusk fell and the attraction opened its doors, I got into character and began haunting the halls of the mansion. The night started off well, with guests screaming and laughing as they encountered the various frights throughout the attraction. However, as the night wore on, I began to notice something unsettling. In between groups of guests, I heard strange noises coming from the depths of the mansion. At first, I brushed it off as part of the ambience, but as the noises persisted, I grew increasingly uneasy. At one point, while lurking in a dark hallway, I heard footsteps approaching. Assuming it was just another group of guests, I prepared to jump out and scare them. But as the footsteps drew nearer, I realized something was off. The footsteps were slow and deliberate, not the hurried pace of excited guests. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, a tall, shadowy figure dressed in tattered clothing. Frozen in fear, I watched as the figure approached, its eyes gleaming with malice. Without a word, it lunged at me, grabbing me by the arm with surprising strength. Panic surged through me as I struggled to break free, but the figure held on tight, its grip like iron. Desperate for help, I screamed for assistance, hoping that someone, anyone, would hear me. To my relief, a security guard appeared, drawn by the commotion. Seeing the guard, the figure released its grip and vanished into the shadows, leaving me shaken but unharmed. The guard escorted me to safety, where I collapsed in a trembling heap, grateful to be alive. In the aftermath of the incident, I learned that the figure was actually a disgruntled former employee who had been fired from the attraction months earlier. Seeking revenge, he had snuck back onto the premises, intent on causing chaos. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt, but the experience served as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in the shadows, even in places meant for fun and entertainment. As Halloween drew to a close, I vowed to never underestimate the power of fear, or the lengths some people will go to in pursuit of it. The opportunity to work at the local haunted house attraction was both exciting and nerve-wracking. My friend Alex had been working there for years and convinced me to apply for a position as an actor. With Halloween approaching, I figured it would be a fun way to earn some extra money and embrace the spooky spirit of the season. The attraction, known as the Haunted Mansion, was a sprawling complex with multiple themed areas, including a decrepit mansion, a twisted forest trail, and a labyrinthine corn maze. Each section promised its own unique brand of terror, and I couldn't wait to be a part of it. On my first day, I was assigned the role of a deranged asylum patient in the Haunted Mansion. My character's backstory was tragic yet chilling, a victim of cruel experiments gone awry, doomed to wander the halls of the mansion for eternity. As I donned my tattered hospital gown and applied layers of ghastly makeup, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement mingled with trepidation. As the sun set and the attraction opened its doors to eager thrill seekers, I took my place in the dimly lit hallway of the Haunted Mansion. The air was thick with anticipation as groups of guests ventured inside, their nervous laughter echoing off the walls. For hours I lurked in the shadows, leaping out to startle unsuspecting guests with blood-curdling screams and frenzied movements. It was exhilarating to see the fear in their eyes, to know that I was playing a part in creating spine-tingling moments they would never forget. But as the night wore on, a sense of unease began to settle over me. In between groups of guests, I found myself haunted by strange noises echoing through the mansion, whispers in the darkness, the creaking of floorboards, the distant wails of unseen specters. At first, I brushed off these eerie occurrences as nothing more than part of the elaborate atmosphere of the attraction. But as the night grew darker, the noises became more persistent, more unsettling. It was as if the very walls of the mansion were alive with a malevolent energy, whispering secrets that sent shivers down my spine. Then, in the stillness of the night, I heard it, a low, guttural growl emanating from the depths of the mansion. My blood ran cold as I realized that this was no mere sound effect or trick of the imagination. Something was lurking in the darkness, something sinister and hungry. Unable to shake the feeling of dread that had taken hold of me, I ventured deeper into the mansion, my footsteps echoing eerily against the cold stone floors. With each passing moment, the sense of foreboding grew stronger, until it felt as if the very air around me was charged with malevolence. Suddenly, I heard a sound that made my heart stop. The unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing through the darkness. Panic surged through me as I realized that I was not alone in the Haunted Mansion, that something was hunting me, stalking me through the shadows. With trembling hands, I reached for the flashlight clipped to my belt and cast its feeble beam into the darkness. What I saw made my blood run cold. A pair of glowing eyes, burning with an otherworldly light, staring back at me from the depths of the darkness. Paralyzed with fear, I stood rooted to the spot as the creature emerged from the shadows. A twisted, grotesque figure with elongated limbs and razor-sharp claws. It moved with an unnatural grace, its eyes fixed on me with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. Desperate to escape, I turned and fled, racing through the labyrinthine corridors of the haunted mansion with the creature hot on my heels. With each passing moment, I could feel its icy breath on the back of my neck, could hear the sound of its claws scraping against the stone walls. But just as it seemed that all hope was lost, I stumbled into a hidden passage, a secret tunnel that led to safety. Gasping for breath, I collapsed on the cold stone floor, my heart pounding in my chest. As dawn broke and the first light of morning filtered through the windows of the mansion, I emerged from the depths of the secret passage, shaken but alive. The creature was nowhere to be seen, its presence fading like a nightmare upon waking. In the days that followed, I tried to convince myself that it had all been a trick of the mind, a figment of my overactive imagination. But deep down, I knew the truth, that something truly malevolent lurked within the haunted mansion, something beyond the realm of human understanding. And though I may never fully understand what I encountered that fateful night, one thing is certain: I will never forget the terror that stalked me through the darkness, the haunting presence that lurked within the shadows of the haunted mansion.